Looking for royalty-free music? Discover Epidemic Sound. Get the safest
Okay, who's ready for a stream? I hope you are. I hope the answer is you, because if you're not, tough. That's what you're getting now. It's time for a little stream, isn't it? Hey chat, how are you all doing? Isn't it time for a little stream? I think it is. I think it's time for a little cheeky little stream. I think it's time for a little stream, but I don't know if anyone here is ready. I haven't seen anyone in chat say that they're ready for a little stream. I just don't know. Is there anyone here who's ready for a little stream? Anyone? Wow, I guess no one's ready for a little stream. No one? Nobody? Oh, I see some people who are ready for a little stream. Hello, James Prince. You're ready for a little stream. Hello, Failing Cookie. You're ready for a little stream. Wonderful. Okay, let's talk about Reading University. Oh dear. Oh dear. Reading University fucked up. They really fucked up. And I've decided they are going to apologize for this. And, we're gonna make that happen. Because I'm sick of this, and it's time to make them apologize. So, who's ready for a little stream? Yeah? Okay. No, I actually want to divert quickly to a positive piece of news first, because if we're only talking about bad things, right, it can get pretty tiring. Yes, we'll be talking about what we can do. Yes, we can talk about a plan of action. But, you know, as well, I think it's really important that we focus on something good. So first of all, many of you may be aware that the British government passed a conversion therapy ban, and they excluded trans people. A clear sign to bigots who wish that we didn't exist, that trying to make us not exist is fine by them. It's been the subject of many protests all around the country, including in Wales, where the Welsh government has just announced that they are doing a proper conversion fucking therapy ban, including trans people, because that's the only moral fucking position that you can take on this thing. And they're doing it, which is wonderful. That is really good news. That's really cool. But it's especially cool to see them say the UK government can't be trusted to provide protections, so Wales will. Fantastic. Good job, Wales. That's really amazing. Let's watch a little bit of that.
Today, I want to further reinform and offer reassurance that the Welsh Government is committed to banning conversion practices for everyone in our LGBTQ+ communities. We will do everything possible within our devolved powers and seek the devolution of any necessary additional powers to achieve this. The Welsh Government will protect and value every LGBTQ+ person. Action speaks louder than words, and it is clear we cannot trust the UK Government to deliver the protections that every member of the LGBTQ+ community deserves. Today, I can announce the next steps this Welsh Government is taking and will take towards making conversion therapy a thing of the past. By the commission of legal advice to determine all the levers we have in Wales to end the practice of conversion therapy unilaterally. I want to know what we can do, not just what we can't do. We will educate and raise awareness of the horrors and ineffectiveness of conversion therapy practice by establishing a dedicated campaign in Wales. The campaign will highlight existing support services for survivors of conversion therapy, but alongside this we will design and commission research to better understand the impact of conversion therapy on survivors to improve the accessibility and effectiveness of support services. And we will establish a working group of experts to include representatives from faith communities, the health and social care sector, and children and young people's representatives alongside LGBTQ+ people to help with this work and advise on key elements as the ban is developed and taken forward. In addition to this, I'm pleased to be able to announce that NHS Wales has signed up the Memorandum of Understanding on banning conversion therapy. Organisations who sign the memorandum and work in the provision of mental or psychological health delivery or commissioning, such as the NHS, commit to ending the practice of conversion therapy by actively ensuring they do not commission or provide conversion therapy. We are committed to build on these steps and to end conversion therapy in Wales. There's a widespread support for a ban, and I've received messages of support from a range of individuals and organisations, from the health sector to faith settings. Together we can make conversion therapy history. together to make sure Wales is the most LGBTQ plus friendly nation in Europe, where no one can or will be left out or left behind.
So how about that phrase, make conversion therapy history? I think that's really, really cool. Saying we're going to make conversion therapy history. And I think, unfortunately, the University of Reading's University of Reading comprehension might be a little fucked up there, and they've seen the same phrase and they thought, oh yeah, we can make conversion therapy history. We can make the history books by being massive, dumb fucking bellends. That's a legal term. And inviting someone to speak promoting conversion therapy. Right. So. Hi there, Transigil. Glad to have you here. That's cool. Oh, that's wonderful. That's a very good idea. Thank you so much. Okay. So, UOR Transigil contacted me earlier today to let me know about the University of Reading having someone come to speak for them called Holly Lawford-Smith. So, who is Holly Lawford-Smith? What a great place to start. Okay. Who is Holly Lawford-Smith? You do a quick search on Twitter. The first thing you find is this clip of her talking in some kind of Australian TV show. Let me turn off the music so we can hear everything. There we go. Okay. So we want to hear this crystal clear because she has some very nuanced and interesting opinions about trans people that I've absolutely never heard before, and definitely aren't worn-out, tedious bigotry that gender-critical feminists repeat constantly. She has some very interesting opinions, and that's why she's worth listening to, I guess. So let's hear some of her opinions.
I do. I mean, I guess a good place to start is to notice that almost trans issues aside, almost no one is contesting.
So trans issues aside,
that we should have sex-separated sport.
That's not true. So, yeah, trans issues aside for a second, even though that's the whole reason she's here, because she is an anti-trans activist, a vile bigot who is only here to tell people how much she hates trans women. Very cool. No one is contesting that we should even have sex-segregated sport. That's not even true. That's just not true. It's been a focus of feminist thought about sporting competition for a really fucking long time, and continues to be among trans feminists and feminists who aren't trans exclusionary, or it might be better to say trans exterminatory. Let's have a look at why I might be saying that about Holly Lawford-Smith.
I think that's out of recognition, right? That there are meaningful differences physiologically between male and female bodies, that there are issues of safety, fair competition, privacy, and more. Anytime you have a trans woman athlete in an elite team, for example, that's a place that a woman doesn't have. And it gets even more serious when it comes to things like scholarships.
So there's Holly Lawford-Smith saying, anytime a trans woman is in sports, that's a place that a woman doesn't have. Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, very, very interesting there. Saying trans women aren't women pretty explicitly. I know I'm inferring from what she said, but yeah, it's pretty clear what she's getting at there. Gee, I wonder if we can find out some more. Maybe she misspoke and this wasn't even... Oh, hang on. Her personal website has a censorship timeline. Okay, that's cool. Let's see about her censorship timeline and what that says. So, okay, yeah, she's being censored because she was banned from Twitter for violating our rules against hateful conduct. No details provided, so unfortunately we can't possibly know what it was that she was banned for. Except it does say details there. Let's go find out about that. Censorship timeline. Okay. Right. So it does actually say details here. I wonder if there are details on what she was actually reported for. That would be pretty interesting. No, okay. Well, maybe it was an unfair censoring. Maybe she was unfairly censored. This is so fucking silly. I should have one for my shitpost that people didn't like enough. Yeah, so it is pretty much like that because so we have she was interviewed by a magazine, but then the magazine chose not to include the interview. She gave a public talk and students protested it. She was banned from Twitter. Student activists attempt to have something shut down, to have her disincluded from a panel. Let's see. A petition against her because she's such a horrible bigot. Okay. An article being withdrawn. Right, the Institute for Art and Ideas withdraws an article with contributions from multiple philosophers after the trans activist authors complain about being co-platformed with gender-critical authors. Interesting. Sure sounds like you're making a minority group feel really uncomfortable, and students, recognizing that this is true, are doing protests everywhere that you go to say, hey, don't platform her, she's a horrible fucking bellend. Sure sounds like that to me, but what do I know? I only research fascists for a living. Right. Anyway, students, October 2019, students at the University of Melbourne protest a philosophy talk by a speaker because she is invited by me and therefore assumed to be gender critical. Okay, was she gender critical though? Permanently suspended from Medium for hate speech. Now that's a really interesting one because that's actually, I've not seen people suspended from Medium before. I assumed it happened. I assumed that Medium had some kind of some kind of policy that would have people excluded and have people banned for if they were being hateful. But I've never come organically across someone banned from Medium before. That's just delightful. Let's read some messages in the chat from UOR Transigil. Again, UOR Transigil is a group. I think. Well, I don't know the total details, but they are some number of people organizing at University of Reading at the moment. So, it's worth noting in the lecture she said trans lesbian women aren't lesbians, they're straight. So of course the conversion therapy wasn't going to work. Cool. What a fucking scumbag. We also outnumbered her at the talk yesterday from 100 of us to 5 of them, 6 if you include the person who entered to take notes on it. Yeah, I heard that the lecture itself was actually barely attended, which asks the question why University of Reading would... Well, okay, we'll get to University of Reading in a minute. We're establishing who Holly Lawford-Smith even is to begin with. Right. So, let's see. That's her censorship timeline. So we've seen how much she's been persecuted. We've seen now how much she's been persecuted by the powers that be and how much they don't want to allow her to express normal, critical, feminist opinions. Okay? We've seen her express completely normal opinions and then get censored for it. Right? It's not like she's just gender critical. She just has opinions. It's not like she's out here associating with, like, Graham Linehan. Oh, no! Okay. Right, let's watch a bit of this fucking trash. Here we go.
Hello, thank you for joining me. Today we have a special edition, our first Australian gender-critical monsters since Sal Grover, who we had on last year.
I love when fascists ironically talk about how much people hate them, and they're like, here, you get like Dave Rubin going like, and here we are obviously having a completely
fascist conversation about evil stuff and how much we want to kill everyone.
And then, like, the conversation will just go on to actually literally be about how, like, the person he's talking to thinks that black people are biologically inferior and gays shouldn't be allowed to marry. And you're just like, the sarcasm doesn't work, Dave, because you are that stuff. Same here with fucking Graham. Come on, like, you're just like, I've got some gender critical monsters here. Okay, let's see what these sarcastically monsters have to say.
I'm speaking today to Catherine Deves and Holly Lawford-Smith. Hi guys, how are you doing?
Hi. Hello.
Very pleased to have you. Can you tell me a little bit about yourselves? Catherine, how did you get involved in all this?
I'm a recent law graduate. I'm awaiting admission to the New South Wales Supreme Court as a solicitor. So I started looking into this a few years ago, both as a lawyer and a new mother of baby twin girls. Thought I needed to freshen up on my feminism and came across this new concept of gender identity and went looking and obviously quickly realized
this new concept of gender identity. Simone de Beauvoir famously didn't believe in gender, didn't think that it was real. That's what the second sex is all about. It's about how there are just two sexes, gender doesn't exist. And then, of course, in 2015, we invented being trans, and then that's where all the trans people came from. So, new concept! Fucking ridiculous, come on.
that something
I love even how Graham just looks bored, like he's just like this through the whole thing.
was very wrong and women's rights were under threat. I went looking at the legislation in Australia and to my surprise found that gender identity had already been incorporated into our federal legislation and our state legislation and things.
So this on the face of it is just like a completely like balmy fucking description of history already. Because if you're just like not plugged into feminism at all, and then you decide to come and educate yourself because you just had 2 baby girls, so you're like, wow, I care much more about feminism now. I, as a woman, didn't care at all before, but now I have these girls, so I guess I care. Very strange. Anyway, but let's, suppose that's it. You were completely ignorant of feminism for a period, and you decide to get plugged back into it, right? The idea that you find immediately the gender-critical feminists as if that's what most feminists think, like, holy fuck, the levels of brain rot that are on display here. Then I found out about this concept called gender identity. It's like, okay, were you ever a feminist to begin with? If you're saying you only just found out about gender identity, what a ridiculous thing to say. But furthermore, like, I went and looked about feminism, and are we supposed to believe that any feminist who's watching this won't go like, I mean bare minimum. I'm talking about bare minimum, as if gender critical were a serious position and not just the gender equivalent of anti-Semitism, right? As if gender critical were a legitimate branch of feminism for a moment. We're gonna exist in fucking La La Land for just a moment and imagine that gender critical feminism is a type of feminism and not just an attempt to sneak in genocide against trans people. If you're going in and you're like, what's up with all the feminism? I'm out of date. I need to find out about feminism, right? How would you not find out that most feminists hate gender-critical feminists? Like, even if, just like I'm saying, like, supposing for a second gender-critical was like a normal branch of feminism, right? No mention of the idea that most feminists support trans people and hate gender criticals. But, it's just a brief oversight. I guess she's just in her echo chamber. I guess, we can't expect miracles of people. I, too, am in a bit of an echo chamber, I suppose. I mostly see posts from people who don't want to have people like me rounded up, put into camps, and given forcible conversion therapy torture. Which is a tiny, tiny, tiny little echo chamber of most people on the planet, even conservative voters, by the way, like 60% of Tory voters, right? Some of the most small-souled, gullible, bigoted people on the planet, 60% of them think that there should be an absolute conversion ban in the UK.
This had already progressed further than I could have imagined in my worst nightmare. And then
When was this, did you say, Catherine?
that went in 2013, so I was looking probably around 2016. And then I went looking online for...
So gender identity has been included in the law in some kind of way. She hasn't been clear. And it's gone way further than she ever thought it would. And it's really bad. It's really bad now because gender identity is in the law and they snuck it in there. That's what we're going to talk about next. They snuck it in there. It's interesting. Well, yeah, we'll see what she means. But she hasn't actually said what law it is yet.
Or like-minded women came across the UK debate first, like Holly, and then to my great joy and delight found that there were actually networks of women in Australia who thought the same way as me. So then I started speaking out last year when I co-founded a group called Save Women's Sports Australasia with some New Zealand women, just in relation to the impact of transgender inclusion policies in Australia that were...
Okay, so that's some laws, I guess. Gender identity has been put into the law in the specific realm of transgender inclusion policies. Okay, that's it. Oh, well. Okay.
Put out there that are obviously impacting women's sports.
Okay, in
with the
sports.
inclusion of
Okay.
biological males, yeah.
Okay, great. Holly, how about yourself?
I'm a philosopher and I got involved
Citation needed.
in the debate through the
Philosophers seek truth.
UK situation following Kathleen
Multiple people agree with me. Multiple people. Yeah, exactly.
Stock's essay, which kind of exploded inside philosophy about self-ID in the UK. And just being really furious watching how the philosophy community responded to her.
Yes.
So I think I got hooked up pretty quickly with the...
Again, the irony doesn't work, right? Because she's pulling this little face. She's going like, ugh, right? As if that's like, a parody, right? But she's saying, like, I was really furious about how the philosophy community responded to Kathleen Stock. And it's like, yeah, but that face is just you. Like, you're beyond parody. You're a beyond parody person. You are beyond absurd, Holly. And if you ever see this, everyone is laughing at you because you're ridiculous. Kind of like a clown, only clowns are kind of cool. Much cooler than you. Anyway, it takes a long time to train to be a clown. And all the training that you've done to be a philosophy professor clearly just went right over your fucking head. Because no philosopher would be so easily tricked into being a fucking rube for a bunch of fascists. Anyway, sorry. My bad. I forgot about Carl Schmitt and Heidegger. Anyway, but she's just going like, I was furious. I was so mad seeing the response to Kathleen Stock, and it's like, yeah, I bet you were. I bet just like Glinna, who you're fucking talking to, you were seething, All right, I'm sorry. That's a complete diversion. Let's get back on understanding what it is. What happened here? What happened to Holly? How did she get radicalized? What's led her to this place now where she's talking to a guy who always looks like he's been punched 1 second ago?
I don't know what they were at the time, maybe 6 or 8 philosophy people in the UK that were sort of supporting Kathleen. So we built a little gang of women and
a gang.
talked a lot. I came over for some conferences and events. I think I was at Lesbians on Chairs for one of the early Posey events.
Right.
So she saw some people responding to Kathleen Stock, and then she went to some Posey events? Oh, that's strange. Because I think that Posey Parker, the person who set up that Lesbians on Chairs event that she's talking about.
About some of the things that you can do. And then, for once, I'm talking to you. I'm talking about you dads who maybe carry, I think that's what you say. I'm so down with the American lingo. Maybe you carry, maybe you don't. Maybe you consider yourself a protector of women. Maybe you're that sort of man. Maybe you have a daughter or a mother or a wife. Maybe you have a sister, maybe you just have some friends, maybe you just think women are human and you don't need any absolute connection with them to feel compelled to protect us. I think you should start using women's toilets, men. Had a bit of an idea about...
Okay, so men with guns should go into women's bathrooms to protect women by presumably shooting trans women, is what Posey Parker's getting at there. Posey Parker, who hangs out with Tommy Robinson, who's done events with the EDL, who went on Tucker Carlson just last week. That Posey Parker. So Holly here, a philosopher, a seeker of truth, a lover of wisdom. I'm sorry. I'm just clowning around. Like I said, clowns, very cool. Lots to balance, skillful artistry. Holly Lawford-Smith, absolute chump fuckery. So, not really the same, and I retract my comment comparing her to clowns. I feel it was very unfair to clowns. Holly saw Kathleen Stock getting targeted, right? And then went to an event by Posey Parker, the woman who says that men with guns should go into bathrooms to kill trans women. The woman who does events with Tommy Robinson. So that was the first tiny baby step that she took into the world of gender critical feminism. Nothing came before that. What, we're supposed to believe she was just like a normal person? Is that what I'm honestly supposed to believe? If anyone here thinks that Holly Lawford-Smith was a normal, non-bigoted person before the cancelling of Kathleen Stock, I have several bridges to sell you. And I'm sorry I missed your birthday yesterday. Right. So she saw Kathleen Stock getting rightfully rebutted, and then she went to a Posey Parker event, and now what?
Getting enculturated and radicalized.
Yes.
It's like
yes.
All
Yes.
prepared for when it arrived in
Most normal gender critical feminist.
Victoria.
I'm a little bit confused about the timeline because, Catherine, you were saying that you started looking into this in 2013, and you said it was already embedded.
So I started looking probably in about 2016. And I found, so in 2013...
Thank you very much to Nathan for donating £20. I appreciate it. For those who haven't noticed, I have a fundraiser going on to get laser beams on my face so that I'll be allowed in the women's bathroom. If you're enjoying the stream, please consider paying for the stream. You can subscribe or cheer or donate directly using Command Tip. If you use Command Tip, you will contribute to the fundraiser. I appreciate it, but I also appreciate subscribing and cheering. Also, if you have a Prime account, you can link it to your Twitch account, and then you can give me money without you having to spend any money yourself, which is kind of cool. Just remember, giving Sophie money in these parts, round here, partner, is considered based. And not giving Sophie money, at least on this stream here, is considered low-key cringe. Bad vibes. My brothers in Christ. Okay. I've done the plugs. Let's carry on.
Amendments were made to our Sex Discrimination Act.
Uh-huh.
The Sex Discrimination Act of 1984, that was for the purpose of
1984, George Orwell, Animal Crossing.
Incorporating the UN Convention for the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, also known as CEDAW. We were signatories to that. So that was enacted in 1984. And then in 2013, at the end of the Gillard administration, they sneaked in gender identity into Sex Discrimination Act.
They sneaked in. Okay. Well, this is pretty interesting, huh? Okay. They sneaked in inclusion of trans people into the Equalities Act. Interesting. Graham, any thoughts?
So they made it a protected characteristic, and the definition was on the basis of the one that came out of the Yogyakarta Principles. So basically, it's a circular definition that's based on subjectivity and stereotypes.
But it's maybe important Sorry,
Yeah.
it's just maybe important to say there wasn't so much of people paying attention to that. Like at the time, there were some people, but certainly wasn't our group. So it wasn't until it started kind of kicking off with self-ID.
But what does Graham
probably
think?
from, I'd say the most recent round of stuff kind of came to attention because of what happened
But
in the
what
UK,
does
right? And then
Graham
New Zealand
think?
followed suit, tried to follow suit, and then various states of Australia tried to follow suit. And so we all kind of got a bit organized around that time, but we weren't really paying attention back then.
So,
Yeah.
right, yes, and it does seem to be the case we found over here that gender identity into law seems to be something that is being sneaked in various different ways. It seems to all operate under stealth.
Oh, it's
Over
always
here, Stonewall has been the
wow.
one that has been misrepresenting the Equality Act to institutions all over the UK. Is there
Okay, it couldn't possibly be that you weren't aware of any of these issues before you were suckered into a ridiculous cult, you stupid, gullible, loser cretin. It couldn't possibly be that. It must be that all this equality was done sneakily by them behind the scenes. Interesting. That's very, very interesting. I wonder who they are. That's very curious to me, because they have been sneaking in equality legislation. Yeah, that kind of reminds me of something that some people say. That's like a story, I think, that people tell about them sneaking in progressive legislation and equality as a way of oppressing you. That's so strange. That's just like something, and I can't quite remember what right now.
an equivalent organization in Australia?
There's a few. So there's Equality Australia down in Victoria. So their main focus used to be same-sex marriage, and obviously we achieved that. So they're looking for a new focus. Here in the state of New South Wales, it would mostly be ACON, which is the AIDS Council of New South Wales. So that started out as a charity focusing on HIV awareness and prevention for gay males. Thankfully, the AIDS crisis is under control, so they've expanded into transgender ideology, and in particular the sports programming that's coming from them.
Right,
Yeah.
right. You were saying that you anticipated it a little bit.
Right. So Graham asks, is there an equivalent organization to Stonewall, who are the ones over here, up here in the UK, and the right way up side of the planet, who are, because here in the UK, Stonewall have been the ones sneaking in all this legislation, all of this equalities legislation. Is there an equivalent in Australia? And Catherine Deves says, Equality Australia. Okay, yeah, that sounds like an evil, sinister, sneaky organization. And the AIDS Council. So an organization who were for gay marriage and achieved gay marriage, now they're into all of this transgender stuff. Why? Why? Why would they do that? Why would they do that? Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Because gay marriage is good, probably. Well, we'll discuss it later. But, like, we probably assumed gay marriage is good. Why would you, an organization who are into promoting gay marriage and getting marriage equality for gay people, go on to do all this transgender stuff, which we know is bad? You know, I'm starting to think that maybe gay marriage is bad, actually. And also the AIDS Council, like the visceral loathing you have to have for queer people, just the deep, visceral loathing you have to have for queer people to sit here with, like, literally the Karen haircut. Like, I don't go, like, putting the Karen haircut, photoshopping it onto shit, right? Like, I think that's a played out meme, a bit misogynistic, but you're just sitting here with the actual Karen haircut, going, yeah, actually, it's the fucking AIDS Council who are trying to make us all love transgenders now. It's like, babe, please, come on. There's like saying the quiet part loud, and then there's being Hitler loud. Come the fuck on, Catherine, please. just like this group who pushed for marriage equality and the AIDS Council, They're the ones sneaking in transgender equality. And side note on Catherine Deves. Little side note about Catherine Deves. She's trying to run for elected office at the moment in Sydney. And she had to flee Sydney because she was receiving so many death threats from trans activists. But New South Wales police has said that she hasn't talked to them about it. So maybe she just went to her holiday house or something. Like maybe she just went to her fucking beach house. Maybe her fleeing Sydney isn't actually quite it isn't actually quite an accurate description. Like maybe her life actually isn't in danger in any measurable way whatsoever, and trans people are in danger because of people like her, because she's a vile fascist bigot. Maybe maybe something like that. I don't know. It's just possible.
But it sounds to me that the most recent thing I've heard, which is so frightening, is a huge win for them, which is the conversion therapy law. Let's start with the bad news. Can you tell us, what is this conversion therapy law? What does it mean for children and women over there?
I'm going to get ads.
I was very brave of you.
What is this? Oh, this is that phone thing. I don't care, man. Come on.
I mean, the bad news is that it just passed in Victoria.
Okay, so let's just hear that again.
I mean, the bad news is that it just passed.
Right, so this is who Holly Lawford-Smith is. We've spent a little while on Catherine Deves, and I'm sorry about that. So this is who Holly Lawford-Smith is in a sentence. I mean, the bad news is that it just passed. It being a total ban on conversion therapy in Australia. The bad news is that it just passed. Like, there's a one thing if you buy into, some sort of absurd fucking bizarre lie about how, we need to research more and understand more about trans people or some fucking nonsense like this, right? That's one thing, right? And I'm just trying to, when I say that's one thing, I'm just trying to measure Holly Lawford-Smith on a sort of gradation away from a normal fucking person. Because here's her trying to say that she's a normal person, and then she sees Kathleen Stock get cancelled, and then she gets a bit radicalized. But it's no, she saw Kathleen Stock speaking up about being a transphobe and hating trans people, and she was like, great, here's my opportunity. And then she went to a fucking Posey Parker event, the fascist who says that men should come with guns to kill trans women. The fascist who went on Tucker Carlson last week, the fucking fascist who hangs out with Tommy Robinson and does events with the EDL. It's cool. She's not a normal person. She was not a normal person to begin with. She fucking loathes trans people. She's a foaming at the mouth rabid bigot. And here she is saying, I mean, the bad news is that this total ban on conversion therapy just passed. She's just saying it's just categorically bad that conversion therapy, which is not therapy, it's abuse, it's torture, and it doesn't even, by the way, work as a therapy. It doesn't stop people from being themselves. Right? It just overwhelmingly results in people fucking killing themselves because they don't feel like they have the option to be themselves, and if they try to be themselves, they'll be put through torture again. Okay? It's fucking torture. And this vile, hateful piece of shit is saying the bad news is that was just banned. The bad news is they banned torture. They've just banned torture. Damn it! This is such a gut-wrenching loss for women. Women who love torture. This is such a hard thing to deal with as a woman who loves when children are tortured. This, to me, as a woman who loves when children are tortured, is heartbreaking to see. I don't know how I'm going to go on as a woman who loves when children are tortured. Because I think the rights of women who love when children are tortured are being eroded every day. My right to see children get tortured is disappearing around the world. What am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? Fucking hell. She's an evil fascist. She fucking sucks. She's the worst. She's extremely, extremely, extremely awful and the worst. Let's just watch a little bit more.
In Victoria. So Kat's in New South Wales and then in Victoria, but we think it's coming there soon as well. So that's gone through. It's, I think, the most draconian form of that legislation. So it has been introduced in other states of Australia already, but kind of limited to medical practitioners, or just kind of a more restricted version. This version was, in principle, bringing in everyone. I'm sure Kath can refine my what I say. But I think the intention was adults in some sort of position of authority, but that's really wide. I mean, teachers,
Parents,
basically anyone. And then they had an exemption in for some clinicians. So
if parents want to torture their children, they'll get thrown in jail. You can't even say you torture your children anymore. They'd throw you in jail. Come the fuck on. Just come the fuck on. Just come the fuck on. Come on. Come on. Come on. You can't even torture your children these days. It's political correctness gone mad. Anyway, so I think we've got a pretty good overview of who Holly Lawford-Smith is by now. I think. Probably. Let's just have a look at the rest of my thread. So here is Rebecca Solnit in 2020 writing in The Guardian. Trans women pose no threat to cis women, but we pose a threat to them if we make them outcasts. Let's read a little bit of this article. Right. Dear ladies who are fearful and hostile to trans women. That I grew up and spent most of my life in San Francisco, I consider one of my greatest strokes of luck, because it was in its heyday the loudest, proudest queer town around. Even as a straight girl, which, hey, you know, straight women involving themselves in fucking queer discussions is the name of the game here, apparently, so cool. Even as a straight girl, maybe especially as a straight girl, I benefited endlessly from that. I went to my first gay bar here when I was about 14, with a gay man who was the kindest person in my adolescence. The drag queens who were his friends were also kind, and 40-something years later, my life in and around the queer community has been largely an experience of kindness and liberation, because all these people made it clear to me that gender was what you made of it, and biology is not destiny, and that was really helpful. As I've watched transphobia explode in the American right and the British whatever, I've thought over my own experience. San Francisco has been, for a century or so, a sanctuary city for dissident, rebel, and queer people, so I suspect I have lived my whole adult life in a place with more trans people per capita than almost any place else. Transphobes are always warning us that if trans people live in peace and legal recognition and even have rights, there will be terrible consequences. But I assume that we here have long realized, at least to some extent, that dreaded future, and we're all fine. Despite this, people, many of whom are supposed to be feminists, keep coming up with lurid what-ifs. My response to them is, trans women do not pose a threat to cisgender women, and feminism is a subcategory of human rights advocacy, which means, sorry, you can't be a feminist if you're not for everyone's human rights, notably other women's rights. Second wave feminism, and by the way, chat, just so we're clear about this, that doesn't include the right to torture your children. That doesn't include, in case anyone needed that clearing up for them. Second wave feminism produced the classic 1972 children's album Free to Be You and Me, which I'd like to point out was not titled Free to Be Me, but I Get to Define You. But back then we thought gender really was kind of binary and defined by genitals. Science has gotten smarter in the decades since, and we know now it's a complex interplay of chromosomes, hormones, primary and secondary sex characteristics, and other stuff. Some of which is in the brain, not the pants, and also quite a significant number of people are born intersex, and some are misgendered at birth, and male and female never were airtight categories anyway. Right. You get the flavor of this article. It's a very good article. Chat, do you want me to carry on reading this? Give me a 1 if you want me to read the way to the end of this one. It's quite a nice article. I've read it before. I'll put the link to it in the chat anyway. Give me a 1 if you want me to read it all. 0 if you'd like me to move on. Hey, Lost Sue, you're back! Congratulations! Thank you for... Oh, you got the gift sub. Thank you, Drake Signed, for gifting a sub to Lost Sue. And welcome back to Twitch. And I'm sorry that those weird racists reported you. Okay, everyone wants me to carry on reading. Okay. Cultures from Native America to India have long recognized that there are other ways to be gendered. This complexity and fluidity can be a blessing, and it's something feminism embraced when it demanded that woman not be a category so tightly defined by roles, relationships, appearances, and limits set on our options. Yeah, you know what's a great book to read for that? The original feminist text, Le Deuxième Sexe by Simone de Beauvoir. Like, so many of these conversations, because fascists, you know, unsurprisingly, are just like 300 years out of date and have never read a fucking book. Like, these conversations are old as shit. Like, you don't need like some big discussion and debate and academia with a fucking side portion of asking the questions that get people murdered. University of Reading. Jeez. Wow. Well, these conversations have been had, and they've actually been finished for a really long time, and you actually don't need to have this conversation anymore. And it's actually just a conversation that's aimed at sneaking in genocidal policies against trans people. You know, that's the real sneaking in that's occurring here. Is gender criticals trying to do things like run for office, right? Like Catherine Deves is literally trying to run for office as a gender critical so that she can put in laws to kill trans people with. At this point in my life, I have trans friends and non-binary friends, bisexual, gay, and lesbian friends who are poets and photographers, doctors and nurses, climate organizers and professors and historians, and one gay Buddhist priest who's also a sister of perpetual indulgence. Speaking of San Francisco, things I'm proud of. I'm not speaking for any of them, so perhaps so many queer and trans people have already spoken up eloquently. But perhaps, well, I mean, that's your issue, right? You're a cis straight woman, so you get to write an article in The Guardian, and all those queer and trans people who speak up so eloquently, we just have to moan on Twitch to the people who choose to watch us. Hey, great time to say my rapidly becoming stream catchphrase. Cis people, talk to other cis people, you lazy pieces of shit. Talk to other cis people, because other cis people don't believe us when we tell them that you people are trying to kill us. Talk to other cis people, please. Thank you. Right. But perhaps there's something useful for a cisgender straight woman to say to other cisgender women. Thank you. This is exactly it. Thank you very much, Rebecca Solnit. Right. Which I'm going to say as someone who is also a hardcore feminist. The major threat to women, straight or not, cis or not, always was and still is straight men and patriarchy. Every category is leaky, and there are exceptions to every rule, but that's where the lion's share of domestic violence against women comes from, as rape and domestic violence and harassment and murder. One of the really weird fears about trans women is that they're men pretending to be women to do nefarious things to other women, but that's either a fear of straight cisgender men who do horrific things to women incessantly all over the world, in which case the problem is still straight men, or a deep misunderstanding of what trans women are. And yes, men who want to harm women could dress up as women, but they could also pretend to be repairmen or emergency workers to get into our homes, and actually have. And we haven't banned repairmen and emergency workers yet. George Orwell, 1967, Animal Crossing. As a young woman dealing with endless street harassment and menace from straight men, I used to breathe a sigh of relief when I got into the Castro district because that was the only place I was confident I would be safe. Reflecting back on these 4 decades, I figure I must have spent a ton of time around trans people in bars and clubs and street parties and protests, and yeah, public restrooms, without really noticing, which is maybe the point. Okay, in 2015, at the last night at the Lexington Club, San Francisco's last lesbian bar, I did gradually realize that the many nice young men in the crowd were trans men. Patriarchy would like gender to be fixed, and a lot of its violence is punishment of women who aren't submissive enough, men who aren't straight enough, and anyone else who steps out of line. It's no coincidence that the American right is obsessed with border walls and airtight gender definitions and racial discrimination to keep others in their places. Also, I can't believe we even have to talk about the bathroom issue, which on this continent is a strictly right-wing, rile-the-base issue. I have been using public restrooms in this exceptionally gender-diverse city for the past 40-something years, and also reading the local and national papers. Plus, I know a lot of school teachers and parents of school children, and in that time, I have never actually heard of, or read of, let alone seen, an incident in which a trans woman or girl somehow caused unpleasantness in a women's room. And it does not appear to be something anyone worries about here. In the year of Our Lady 2020, there's still a fuss in the UK about the bathroom business. When there's so much real violence against women, it's a sad waste of time to focus on imaginary, maybe presumably it could theoretically happen violence. Trans women pose no threat to cis women, but we pose a threat to them if we make them outcasts and pariahs, and insisting they use men's bathrooms endangered them horribly. Trans women live dangerous lives because gender nonconformity is punished in innumerable ways, speaking of patriarchy, and black trans women are murdered at a horrific rate, generally by cisgender men. There's also a hullabaloo about young people choosing to be trans who may change their minds. I'm sure they exist. Also, we all know they're rare and that people are not trying on genders like they were Halloween costumes because this is not easy for them. We all know that being cisgender straight is the easiest and most encouraged thing to be, and if some young women are daunted by the prospect of being women under patriarchy, the thing to fix is patriarchy, i.e. apply more feminism here. I like this article. I think it's well written. What I also know is how formerly many people whose assigned sex did not correspond to their gender identity were unable to find the chance or the courage to transition until later in life, and how often they had ruinously miserable lives beforehand. Lots of them wrote books about it, so anyone who wants to know it can know it. It's great. By the way, everyone in chat, if you haven't already, please check out Whipping Girl by Julia Serrano. Fantastic book. Fantastic book for cis people to read as like a really comprehensive primer on trans issues. And obviously the transgender issue by Sean Fay, though I haven't personally gotten around to reading that yet, so my recommendation comes with kind of a pinch of salt, but also like everyone I know who's read it loves it, so not really. Anyway, I'm gonna read it soon. It's great that people can transition earlier, and in those early cases, parents and medical experts tend to be exceedingly careful about how those decisions are made, and a few of those parents are my friends and family, and in their kids' cases, it worked out really well. We all need to trust them and recognize that that's their business and not ours. Finally, there are about 4 billion women and girls on Earth, and we are not in danger of being erased. But also, there is no one-size-fits-all definition of what a woman is. Some of us are born with absent or divergent personal parts, or with chromosomal or hormonal anomalies. We come in many shapes and styles. Patrolling bathrooms against trans women has led to some non-conforming cisgender women being harassed and humiliated. It's not about having a uterus or breasts or periods or about giving birth, because women are not breeding stock, and sorry I can't stop boasting about my city, the first man to give birth was in San Francisco. Some of us had mastectomies or hysterectomies in the case of Angelina Jolie, who I'm pretty sure everyone accepts as a woman, both. And so many other variations exist, because nature is restlessly creative, and gender is more a spectrum than a circus, a spectrum and a circus, again, shout out to clowns, than 2 lockboxes. I was proud of being from the queerest town town around before Silicon Valley ate it for breakfast. And now, though there is so much else to loathe about my country now, I'm proud to have supported Elizabeth Warren's run for presidency, in part because during it she said more about trans rights than pretty much all the other national politicians in the US put together. I did like when she said that was cool. I'm proud that Brooklyn put on a giant march to say that trans black rights matter, and that San Francisco has the world's first trans cultural district, commemorating the 1966 Compton Cafeteria riot. Sorry, New York, our uprising was 3 years before Stonewall, and yeah, everyone who thinks trans women are some new thing, they were central to both these 1960s insurrections. I'm thrilled that, miraculously, the US Supreme Court ruled in June that trans and queer rights are protected in the workplace. One of the beautiful things about that is that the basis for that decision comes from the 1964 Civil Rights Act. Those who stood up for racial justice so long ago laid the groundwork for gender justice too. It's all connected, or rather we are, and that's good news. Best wishes, Rebecca. There we go. Right. There we go. There we go. So that's the article. That's the article that was published in The Guardian in 2020. And then this is Holly Lawford-Smith's response to that article that we just read. Trans women pose no threat to cis women, you said. Buckle in, buckos. Okay. Dear Rebecca, I read your piece in The Guardian on Monday. Initially, I didn't think it would be relevant to me given that you addressed it to ladies who are fearful and hostile to trans women, and I am neither. Uh-huh. But there was so much in it that I disagreed with that I ended up finding it relevant enough to want to write to you about it. I thought it was interesting that you talked about transphobia exploding in the American right and the British whatever. I suppose it was too hard to say the British left and admit for all to see that it is not in fact a left-right issue, but it is a feminist issue, one about which there is heated yet reasonable disagreement. So you've got like the American far-right position, right? Put up the wall, get all the immigrants out, stop these dang trannies from invading our schools and turning all our kids into trans, which is worse than gay. It's like double gay. Then you've got the British left, which is Rosie Duffield attending, conferences by a hate group like LGBT Alliance, right? And then you've got the actual British left who support trans people, and then you've got the British right who hate trans people. So it looks like the British left might not actually be like a uniform thing on this, and maybe you're just lying. Maybe you're just a lying liar who lies. That's interesting. It would be kind of interesting if you were just a lying liar who lies all the time. But anyway, philosopher. Give me a fucking break. Anyway, right, let's carry on. A feminist issue. A feminist issue. Come the fuck on. Come the fuck on. Like as if you don't fucking get that the far right use transphobia to recruit people into being fascists. Like, as if you don't get that. As if. As fucking if. As fucking if. You were on this Zoom call over here with fucking Catherine Deves, right? And Graham Linehan is like, are there any organizations in Australia who are creeping around, sneaking in equality legislation? And she's like, yeah, the AIDS Council. And the people who got gay marriage legalized in Australia. They are sneaking in trans equality legislation. Or the Tavistock case, where the lawyer who was used by Keira Bell is an anti-abortion lawyer who has done, like, Koch family cases to try and shut down abortion rights in the American South. And as soon as they won the case in the first round, that lawyer turned around and was like, great, now we can get rid of guilt competence and ruin bodily autonomy. Right? Like, as fucking if you don't get what this is about. Holly Lawford-Smith, are you stupid or a liar? You can choose. because these facts are just broadly available to you. And I honestly find this even harder to believe than Catherine's nonsense like, I went to educate myself about feminism and I never noticed that most feminists find gender-critical feminism repulsive. I find this even harder to believe. This is just you playing to your turf audience and like doesn't have any, it just doesn't have any bearing on reality whatsoever. Like this isn't, like, you fucking people accuse people like me of not knowing what reality is. Come the fuck on. Come the fuck on. There are plenty of TERFs who will admit that, like, they're on the British left, but they think that Trump's great. Right? Like, there are plenty. It's not a left-right issue. Yeah, if you define the left as fucking Keir Starmer, like, yeah. Jesus fucking Christ. Okay. But, you know, if it were to be a feminist issue, i.e. one about liberation and freedom for the struggle for freedom from oppression, right? And class solidarity and liberation, then guess what? Again, you will find that everyone on the right side of history is with trans people again and again and again and again, and you're just a vile bigot who hates us. You asserted very confidently in your piece that trans women do not pose a threat to cisgender women, and feminism is a subcategory of human rights advocacy, which means, sorry, you can't be a feminist if you're not for everyone's human rights, notably other women's rights. I'm not one of those feminists who think that I'm not one of those feminists who thinks that feminism is for everybody. Okay. But that's the least interesting of what there is to object to in your statement. More interesting is that you beg the question against your feminist opponents by assuming that trans women, she will stick to this religiously, by the way. She sticks to this religiously, trying to define trans women, all one word, as if it's a separate thing from women, when obviously it's not. Trans is an adjective, not part of a compound noun. Are women, and that you make an empirical claim for which there is no evidence. Oh. I agree that to be a feminist, you must be for all women's rights. But exactly what is at issue between yourself and many of those people, many of whom are supposed to be feminists, you are arguing with is whether women are the class of female people or the class of people who say they identify as women. No. I'm a female person. I'm a woman. I'm biologically female. You see, Holly, there just isn't actually that much difference between human beings' bodies to begin with. And you can do certain things to change your body. For example, your hormone levels, you can alter them. And then, by altering them over time, right, you become the same as the intended effect, the intended biological makeup that you're looking for to express in your body, right? It's actually really interesting if you want to learn about it. There's loads to learn about, and trans people have to learn all of it because our healthcare is so criminally underfunded, so deliberately shut down, so cruelly and systematically destroyed, right? That we all have to completely educate ourselves because, like, a vast number of us even have to just, like, circumvent the medical system to get our healthcare. And you know who that reminds me of? People who have needed abortions for hundreds of years. The law and the systemic institutions and society writ large are against us getting the medical care that we need, which is life-saving, and they want to take away our bodily autonomy. And some people who claim to, like, care about women, and even some women who are saying, like, well, I know from experience because I'm a woman and I know that all women, I know what's best for these young women. They're making a mistake when they blah 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 blah. It's exactly the fucking same. And you know why I know it's exactly the fucking same? Because exactly the fucking same people who are trying to shut down my rights are all trying to get rid of abortion access as well. And you know, I'm like going on and on about this, but I would be completely unsurprised to find out that Holly Lawford-Smith herself just like doesn't really care about abortion access or wants it shut down herself. Because when you reach this level of gender critical brain rot turf, right, who goes around saying things like trans women, all one word, like really carefully to try and make this distinction, and insists that trans women are men, right, and goes on Graham Linehan's show, 9 times out of 10, they're against gay marriage, they're against abortion, and they're also racist. And I'm just saying statistically, right? I'm just saying, like, every fucking time with these TERFs. Like, it's always the same fucking thing. Anyway. I'm biologically female, Holly. It's not just an identity thing. People self-identify into the category of women to access the bathroom. But that's just as true for me as it is for my lesbian girlfriend here. She's called Natalie. She's a cis woman, and when she goes into the bathroom, she obviously has to show her government-mandated tranny license, just like me. Oh, wait a second. No, she doesn't. And neither do I. We both go into the bathroom anytime we like. The women's bathroom. No one cares. It's never a problem. It never will be a problem unless people like you, creeps that is to say, insist that my genitals are a problem in the space and that I have to leave because of it. Holly? Anyway. If it's the former, then to be for women's rights does not require being for trans women's rights. Although every radical feminist I know is for trans women's rights. Their rights to be protected from harassment and discrimination as trans people. That's really interesting, Holly, that you would say that, considering that you are a vile, genocidal, violent piece of shit who is advocating for conversion therapy against trans people. So it's kind of interesting that you would say that you're for the protection of trans people, but, maybe your position has just evolved somewhat since 2020 and you've become even more of a frothing fucking fascist since then. Could be. Who knows? Who knows? In support of your claim that trans women do not pose it. Because she's copying it from the article, it has trans space women, right? How rotted does your brain have to be? How broken is your brain, Holly? How broken is your goddamn fucking tough brain? She's copying it from the article and it has a space in it. And then even past that point, she's still going, trans women. Come on, you fucking loser. Oh my god. Oh my god. Of course you fucking people love J.K. Rowling, because it's like fear of the name shit. Fear of the name is fear of the thing itself. I won't call them women. I won't do it. I won't write it like it's an adjective. I won't. I can't write I can't put a space there. This is the same as prison. This is the same as being thrown in prison. My rights are being violated. Shut, fucking, come on. Come the actual fuck on. Yeah, it's not my president shit. I bet she refused to say President Trump as well. It's the most deeply brain-rotted liberal fucking nonsense. Come on. Come on. This is what happens to liberals. This is what happens to liberals. This is what happens to fucking liberals when they have no principles to hold on to anymore, right? When it's just the aesthetics of liberalism, right? Just when it's just the pure, hardcore fucking, when it's just the pure, hardcore, Sorkinist shit, right? And it's just all about, owning people with clever, witty, rhetorical witticisms, right? And having, principles which are about, saying phrases or not saying phrases. But, you're no longer a progressive. You don't give a fuck about, actually protecting LGBT people or people of color or anything, right? So you have, all of the behaviors of liberalism, but just, run rampant without any actual guiding principles whatsoever. Jesus fucking Christ. These people. This isn't a normal person. University of Reading. This isn't a normal person to have invited to speak. Okay, you know what? She goes on to talk about specific examples of trans women who she misgenders and no one's going to object to because it's a murderer or a rapist or whatever. So she feels like she can get away with that, which is great, really cool, really normal. The original article is there saying the overwhelming problem here is cis straight men and patriarchy, and there is no big trend of trans women harming cis women, right? You could go on to even point out like the trend of cis women hurting cis women is larger than the trend of trans women hurting cis women, right? You could point that out, and instead. And Holly's rebuttal here, Professor Lawford-Smith's philosopher, rebuttal here is to just point at like specific cases, just like specific cases of trans women who have murdered or raped people. Great, cool, really normal, just phenomenally normal, just incredible. All right, so I think I've already put it the best way that I can, so I'll just repeat my tweet at this point. I think I've already put it the best that I can. So Holly Lawford-Smith is the smiling face of extermination. And then I fuck up saying it. Holly Lawford-Smith is the smiling face of exterminationist fascist bigotry, and University of Reading inviting her to not only speak, but to lecture on why torture and abuse is acceptable against trans people is inhumanly cruel. Shame on you, University of Reading. Disgusting. So let's talk about what's actually been going on so that we can talk about what we're going to do. And then I'm going to go on a little break, and then I'm going to come back, and I'm going to play some Minecraft. There we go. Okay, cool. Right. Is it here? Right. So, yesterday, University of Reading hosted a talk promoting conversion therapy. Right? Torture, you know. Shame on you, Reading Uni. This is a despicable display of hate that makes your students unsafe and should never have been allowed to take place. Yeah, so there were, I'm given to understand from the people who contacted me about this, UOR Trans Sigil, that there's already been, I found out about this open letter from Club FOD, which is very good, and I encourage people to read it, and I'll give you all the link to the tweet just now. Right, there is the tweet. That was before the lecture happened, right? And loads of people are signing off on this. Loads of students have raised their discomfort and raised that they are uncomfortable with this, and then they just went ahead with the talk anyway, right? They just went ahead with it anyway, despite the complaints. And not only did they go ahead with it, but 5 people were in the audience. Like, it's not like she's this, like, people are so keen to see her speak. She is this rock star philosopher, right? 5 people showed up, and there were like 100 people protesting, right? So why would University of Reading allow an event like this to take place? Well, it must be because you have a strong moral stance that must be stood up for and needs to be defended. Except no, it was her giving a lecture on why the conversion therapy ban exempting trans people. In other words, giving a big flashing neon sign, red light, pointing at trans people and saying, it's okay by all of us, right? That you try and get rid of trans people, that you erase them from existence. She was giving a talk on why that was a good thing. She was giving a talk on why trans people should be exempted from a conversion therapy ban, because conversion therapy, according to her, is only against sexual orientation. So let's just talk through the logic of that for a real quick second, because it's bananas. It's fucking wild. So, most people are straight, okay? Okay. You know what? Just to make sure I've got everyone caught in here, right? Just so that there's no one in chat who can be a needless contrarian. Most people express their sexuality as heterosexuality, right? Even if you happen to be a particular-minded person who's like, well, people don't really know, and we live in a heteronormative society, and maybe people, if they experimented more, I agree with you. I think that's all true. But most people, in practice, are straight, the majority of people. So what happens when you flip their genders? What happens to most people when they go from being a woman to a man, or a man to a woman? Huh? Huh? That's right, you turn them gay. So, what happens when you do forcible conversion, abuse, torture on someone whose gender has changed to change their gender? Ostensibly, that's the goal. It doesn't work. It results in them fucking killing themselves, and even if it doesn't, they have a miserable life and are horribly plagued by mental health issues because of what you did to them. But supposing, hypothetically, you could change them back, right? You would be turning a gay person. Huh? You would be, oh, hang on a second. Oh, hang on a second. Oh. Well, isn't that interesting? It's almost like the logic is complete fucking nonsense and circular and relies on you having already believed that trans women are men to begin with. Right? Because there's this other turf line, which I don't really want to entertain, which is to do with, like, gay people are getting... It's conversion therapy if a gay person transitions, because then they'll be straight. Which, like, no it isn't, because conversion therapy is a specific set of practices, which are abuse and torture, and being trans is not those things. Nobody electroshocks you, non-consensually, into being trans. No one, hurts you or degrades you or forces you, non-consensually, into being trans. Okay, for the TERFs watching, look, I know that you and your husband, Keith, have the most vanilla-ass sex possible. I know you would probably have sex through a sheet if you could. I know. Okay. I'm making a joke about a kink. Clutch your pearls now. Okay. It's a joke. I'm not saying that there is actually this real conversion going on. I'm saying there's a joke. It's a joke. I mean, you're a TERF watching this, right? You've heard of hypno porn. You've heard of hypno-sissy porn? Of course you have, you're a TERF. You love talking about how hypno-sissy porn is turning people trans. That's the joke I'm making, okay? It's about force-femming. That's the joke, okay? Now we're all caught up. The TERFs understand.
It's really nice to speak to your audience.
The TERFs get it.
You're going to have this shared language.
The TERFs get it now, right? So it's fine. Okay. Also, Keith might like if you fucked him in the ass one time. Give it a go. Right. So, I won't really entertain this ridiculous TERF line that being trans is itself conversion therapy. That's fucking nonsense. That's a philosophical term, Professor Lawford-Smith. You might want to write that one down. Fucking nonsense. It's it describes all your work. Anyway, basically, if you are doing conversion therapy on the majority of trans people who are also gay, right? And right? And that doesn't even account for bisexuals, right? That's just, right? That's, right? Like, we're not even accounting for bisexuals here. Pinklon says, Nat's dress is very cute.
Thank you.
Prince Infidel says, Nat, I really like your dress. So, like, it doesn't even make sense. Like, the exemption of trans people, it doesn't even make sense, because if you're trying to stop someone being trans, right, the idea that you're not trying to stop them from being gay, right? In practice, like some parent who's torturing their kid out of being trans, are we supposed to believe that that parent is going to be like, cool, now you're just gay. Fine, that's what I wanted. You know? Like, come on. That's fucking absurd. Anyway, that's just the exemption itself. The exemption itself is absolute gibberish. Fucking nonsense, as a philosopher would say. And sorry, I'm entertaining myself and I'm getting sidetracked. We're gonna look at a petition. University of Reading Transigil has linked me this petition. I'm going to link it to all of you. We're all going to sign it. And then we're all going to share it. And that's just step one. So here's the petition. Everyone in chat, here it is, 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 here it is. There we go. Support LGBT people at University of Reading after pro-conversion therapy talk. Pro-conversion therapy for trans people talk. Okay? It's already got 86 signatures. Let's get... I mean, there's more than 86 people watching right now. There's 179 people watching right now. Get on this petition right now. Right? The point of this petition is to announce support for the LGBT students of the University of Reading and the larger community as a whole. On the 25th of April, a pro-trans conversion therapy speaker was invited to the UOR. The UN has called conversion therapy torture, and the talk violated several University of Reading policies, but was still allowed to go ahead. The University of Reading should make a public apology as the talk was abusive, discriminatory, and harassment using the UOR's own definition. Good stuff. Well written. It violated their code of conduct for external speakers, never okay, and harassment... I don't entirely follow this bit, but okay. Harassment and bullying policies. Such talks are unacademic and dangerous to platform for the LGBT individuals at the University of Reading and the wider community. Please remember to verify your email, as otherwise it won't count as a signature. Link to open letter will be posted shortly. Yes, so there is an open letter coming. We will also share this around. We will also all be signing on to this and sharing this around as well. I have decided. I, Sophie, have decided. The University of Reading is going to apologize for this. This is fucked. This is wrong. This is unprofessional, unacademic. I like that wording. It's dangerous. It makes students, not just trans students, and not just queer students, but students. It makes students unsafe to not only, like, there's a long and storied history of dipshitted fucking devil's advocate university bros trying to host a debate. We'll just talk about the debate on trans issues. This isn't even the debate. This is inviting someone to come from halfway around the world, from fucking Melbourne, to give a lecture telling people why conversion therapy is good. And they didn't even want her there. 5 people showed up. 100 people protested it. That is fucking ridiculous. University of Reading, you should be ashamed. University of Reading, you will be ashamed. University of Reading, you will apologize for this. We're going to make that happen. Let's talk about some steps. Firstly, there's the petition. Firstly, there's the open letter. We know that's coming. Obvious next steps include more protesting. And there should be more fucking protesting because this is vile. This is disgusting. This is completely beyond the pale. This is such a completely fucked thing to do, to invite someone from halfway around the world to come over and talk about how conversion therapy is a good thing. A practice that the UN has deemed torture. Right? Against a group of people who are the tip of the spear, the wedge issue that fascists are using to recruit into the fascist movement that is eating the American right, eating the fucking British right, and eating the brains of British liberals, like Kathleen Stock, for one. It is so patently obvious why this is wrong. Now let's look at University of Reading's responses so far. Okay. So, oh, and incidentally, by the way, sorry, my bad. Oh, incidentally, by the way, Holly Lawford-Smith has done writing on how she doesn't fucking care at all about people of color, because every time with these people, it's just literally every time with these people. Right. So here's Eleanor Alice, who is an alumnus of University of Reading, saying what the fuck to her alma mater, to, let me just check, their alma mater. I'm very sorry, Eleanor. Right? And drawing attention to it. And what did University of Reading respond? So let's just read quickly through hers. Fuck me. Through theirs. I'm very, very sorry. It's because I'm hungry. Nat's just cooked me a really delicious like ramen right here, and I can't have any of it until I go on my break. They said, "What the actual fuck, Uni of Reading? As a graduate, I'm so ashamed to see you legitimize this event. The speaker has a history of transphobic, hateful rhetoric. What is wrong with you?" And we've covered the rhetoric that this person engages in on the stream, right? This fucking person is genocidal. This person wants trans women gone. She is just fucking awful, right? Like, honestly, I would, and this isn't meant to criticize Eleanor Alice here, I'm just saying, this is honestly understating things severely. Proud to see opposition happening today, right? The protests against it. By the way, you can't find the speaker of this event, Holly Lawford-Smith, on Twitter because she got banned for hate speech. She also got banned from Medium for hateful conduct. Exactly the kind of academic you wouldn't want at your university. Right, I agree. Okay, now, University of Reading said,
"We can assure you this event has been reviewed against our external speaker policy, and those speaking will need to abide by our code of conduct. We are committed to providing equal opportunities for all, particularly with regards to gender reassignment, sex or sexual orientation."
Right, so, what's that about? Okay, so, sometimes cyberbullying is good, and I would fully encourage everyone here to be responding to University of Reading and asking them what the fuck their problem is. But let's talk about what their response actually was here. So they said that it's been reviewed against their external speaker policy. Now, I haven't seen the policy, so I won't say with certainty. I will only say that the people who've written this petition say that this is nonsense anyway, right? And it shouldn't be allowed by their policy, which would track because you would hope that University of Reading's policy wouldn't allow people who are advocating torture and abuse to speak there. Right? Like, I haven't seen the policy. I'm just saying, factually, either they have a policy that allows people who are promoting torture and abuse, and they should change it, or they have a policy that doesn't allow torture and abuse to be promoted on their campus by external speakers, and they're lying here. And those speaking will need to abide by our code of conduct. Great. Really just bare minimum. I love eating the floor. Right. We're committed to providing equal opportunities for all, particularly with regards to gender reassignment, sex or sexual orientation. They're trying to quote the Equalities Act. They're trying to quote the Equalities Act to show that they're not harming anyone's protected characteristics, which is just slimy. Like, it's just slimy to do that, right? Like, you are just inviting someone to speak who is advocating conversion torture, right? And then you're saying, we are committed to providing equal opportunities. What the fuck does that mean? Equal opportunities to what? Right? Equal opportunities to come and speak about how you want to have people erased from existence as an entire demographic. By the way, that's genocide. Equal opportunities to come and promote torture and abuse. The right to abuse my kids. Can't even abuse your kids anymore, you know? They lock you up and throw away the key. Can't even say you want to torture children these days. They just throw you in jail and they throw away the key. Come the fuck on. Come the fuck on, Uni of Reading. Come the fuck on. I would like to expect better from institutions of academia. You know? You know, the reason that it's a philosophical doctorate, when you study at a university and you get a degree, an advanced degree in a field, is because all academics are supposed to be lovers of wisdom, seekers of truth. At essence, all academics are supposed to be a kind of philosopher. This is not how a philosopher should act. This is pathetic. This particular response is slimy and gross and just trying to fob people off. And that's why it made me so mad. Right. Then, there's more. There's more, don't worry, there's always more. Then, they replied to my thread about the event that they hosted despite protests. And they said, the seminar was organized by the School of Law and focused on a new law. Interesting. Kind of funny how Professor Lawford-Smith is not a professor of law.
Even
Kind
though
of
she
funny.
does have law in her name.
Hypocritical. Kind of funny how she is not a professor of law. So the School of Law, talking about a new law, isn't really a good explanation of why she's speaking there. It's not actually her field. Kind of funny how she has a massive history of hating trans people and advocating for our elimination from society. And then you had a discussion about a law which is doing exactly that, and then you invited her to give a speech, a lecture on why that law is good. It kind of seems a little bit like the credentials that you have brought her in for are her bigotry and her hatred, nothing to do with her job, nothing to do with her professional accreditations. Kind of seems actually from her censorship timeline, like these are all the things that every institution she's tried to do them through has rejected, right? Either in the student body or the editorial, have rejected her every single time, and yet this is the basis on which she is brought to speak? Is this the standard that University of Reading has for its speakers? People who just go around tripping over their ass all around the world? People who just go into rooms and just fart loudly and then leave? They should be brought in to give lectures on social etiquette, I suppose. Fucking ridiculous. Come on. Do better, University of Reading. This is a woman who calls trans women men. This is a woman who is well known for more well known than anything else for advocating the elimination of a minority group. She is saying the bad news is that there's been a ban on conversion therapy in Australia. This person is not speaking at an event based on legitimate criteria. She is being brought to speak as a hateful person. This is hate speech, and this cannot stand. This event should never have happened, and you should, and I really mean this, you will apologize. So I just linked my thread about who she is there, and I would advise others to clarify who she is anytime that they are offering another slimy, lying response, trying to fob people off and claim that there's nothing, that they did nothing wrong. I would like people to provide the full context because I think it's pretty relevant to this discussion. And yeah. Potential future steps. Right. I'm going to wrap up the stream in a second. Let's just talk potential future steps, and then I'm going to wrap up, go on a little break, come back, play some Minecraft. That's the evening. Okay. Universities make so much of their money and the modern university cares more about money than anything else, through rent. That is why when the coronavirus pandemic was setting in, so many universities tried to stop their students from leaving, or tried to make them pay rent even though they had gone home to self-isolate. So, an effective tactic, which may get them to apologize, which they are going to do, is a rent strike by students who are at University of Reading halls. If upper management of Reading University are seeing any of this, they're shitting their pants right now. That's what pays their salaries. They do not want people to not pay their rent to the university because they make so much money as landlords primarily. Let's just see if there are any jobs listed at Reading University, shall we? Okay, so that's an administrator. That's pretty entry level. See, the problem is I'm looking through some salaries here, and they're gonna be pretty entry level, and then there are gonna be some like teaching salary ones, which are still pretty low because they really underpay their teachers. Because my mom's actually an academic, and I know from her entire professional life, universities treat their staff like shit as well. But it's the upper management who will really be taking home just a huge amount of your rent check, just a huge amount of your of your student loans that you'll be saddled with forever, because our entire system is funneling impressionable young people into having debts that they have to pay off. Therefore, they have to get high-paying jobs. Therefore, they have to do everything exactly as prescribed. Never think about it. Don't think about it for a second.
You could call it grooming.
You could call it grooming, actually. You could. It's almost like the entire institution of education has been corrupted by the neoliberal policies of Tony Blair. And when he said education, 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 he wasn't talking about the unalloyed good of education, in which we make people smarter to have a better and more ethical society, but rather education, education, education as a system of funneling people into the capitalist system. You know, it's almost like that. Wow. They have so many job postings. Wow. University's a big place, you know.
You know, now Tony Blair's pushing for like 85% degree rate. At his time, it was like 40%. And it's clearly a response to the recession. So they're like, okay, more people go to university, more people borrow off their futures, more people, you know, forced into debt, just like the same, but more, you know, as a response to the current catastrophe.
Let's see. What does a vice chancellor make? University Reading salary? Maybe they have this. Maybe they have this detail publicly. Oh my goodness, I just got a huge thing and I missed it. What's going on here? Hang on. Someone. Shield wall space! Oh my goodness, thank you so much! Just gifted a ton of... Is that 10? Is that 20? So many subs. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Okay. The point being, in 2020 to 2021, Robert? Who's Robert? Ah, the Vice Chancellor. Robert's annual salary was £198,000. Oh, goodness gracious me. Okay, so here's the thing. Okay, right, now we've checked it. Okay, here's the thing, University of Reading students, you're watching this. Okay, I'm a little bit older than you. Doesn't mean I'm that much smarter than you, but I have learned some things. Now, there are other things that, you know, people who were in university, when I was in university, were way more aware of already. So I know that there are tons of students who are much smarter than me already. So to them, I'm not saying anything new. But to some of you, you might not have thought of this, right? A rent strike could be more effective than any protest of any size on the campus. If you want a good book about the differences between protest and resistance, read Andreas Malm's excellent book, How to Blow Up a Pipeline. It will get you put on a list for ordering it, but hey ho, what can you do? It's a very good book. In it, Malm discusses at length the difference between protest, a form of spectacle, right? Awareness-raising protest, right? And resistance, right? Resistance is where you take the systems that are going on and you sabotage them. Now, I'm not advocating anything illegal, because on Twitch you can't advocate anything illegal because law is the arbiter of morality, and I obviously believe that everyone should always follow the law. However, if a system is, say, making you deeply unsafe, doing things to shut down that system, one could argue that's an inevitable response. Inevitably, if a system continues to make people deeply, deeply unsafe, or even harms them, or puts their lives at risk, shutting down that system by studying how it works and then sabotaging it is a thing that people will engage in. Nothing to be done. It's simply going to happen. So, putting a pin in rent, putting a pin in student loans, because there's not much you can do about your money going to the university there unless you were to just drop out. The School of Law were the ones who invited Professor Lawford-Smith to speak, apparently, about a new law. That's what we've been informed by the university. Almost like they're telling us, go take it up with them. They want us to just go and take it up with them instead. So, my suggestion, were I to be the one who were asked about how to plan an effective protest against such a thing, but I'm not, of course. I'm just talking hypothetically because I like to educate my audiences on how direct action works. I'm speaking almost academically here. Could be to make it so that the School of Law has trouble functioning. In whatever way. Hypothetically. Anyway, for now, those are all hypotheticals. I'm just talking hypothetically. For now, we have the petition. Should I relink the petition, chat? It's not the School of Law, it's specifically Rosa Friedman. She's an interesting character, could be worth a view. Interesting, Rosa Friedman. I figured that it might be, because I'm aware that this is the way that gender criticals tend to work. They worm their ways into specific places, and then they use their positions of authority to abuse people and, groom more people to join their cult. Right, so it's a specific professor in the University of Reading School of Law. Huh, so it's not the School of Law. Actually, University of Reading were irresponsibly throwing their entire department under the bus when there's a specific character here who is causing the problems. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? So this person here is the one... Oh, interesting. Well, food for thought. We've relinked the petition. I will be sharing the open letter on my Twitter when it is available. It is also going to be available at the link of the petition that I've shared there. I'm going to be keeping an eye on this one, and I'm going to be sharing updates. I will probably do another stream shortly as more develops. I am quite determined that University of Reading apologize for this absolutely vile display of bigotry that they have enabled, making all of their students unsafe and making their trans students feel targeted. So, I will catch you with those updates when they happen. In the meantime, I have a couple of work things to take care of before I stream Minecraft, so I will raid into someone just now. Who am I going to raid into? My good pal, DJ Mule. Thank you all for watching. Please sign the petition. It's there in chat. There. If you're enjoying the stream, please consider paying for the stream. You can subscribe or cheer or donate directly using Command Tip. If you use Command Tip, you'll be paying into my fund for laser beams on my face, which I really appreciate, so consider doing that, please. I will be back with some Minecraft shortly. And, I hope you all have a wonderful day. Or night, as it is here. Or evening, you could argue. Or morning, if you're somewhere where it's the morning. Okay. See you all really soon. Chat to DJ Mule about how fucked up this is, because I know he's angry about it too. Okay. Good night, everybody.
Good job. You're really great at doing these.
Is not doing things with like